What are you doing to us, Apple? What are you doing to us?
The Mac has had three major transitions in its history: the move to PowerPC, the transition to Mac OS X, and the move to Intel. And now it's time for a huge leap forward for the Mac. Because today is the day we're announcing that the Mac is transitioning to our own Apple Silicon.
All right, you've probably heard that Apple's actually coming out fairly soon with the new lineup of MacBooks or Macs and everything else with the ARM chip in it. And that's going to be their own Apple Silicon that they're going to be shipping it with. So the difference with that is those are ARM chips that are going to be in those systems. And what is currently in the systems right now is Intel. Now, Apple's done these transitions in the past from different types of, I guess, platforms is what you want to call it. But we'll get into what that means. Should you buy an Intel-based MacBook right now? Should you wait for the ARM systems to come out? How much information do we have? Apple, what are you doing to us? All right, so with the current lineups, as you well know, I actually made a bunch of videos on this. I'm finally happy with the MacBook lineup, which is kind of funny. Obviously, the iMac needs to be updated fairly soon, but the MacBooks have finally gotten all replaced. So we basically have the 2020 13-inch has, I got the base model, a bunch of videos on that. Does good video editing. I got it for $1099, $1,100 with 8 gigs of RAM, and I got the quad core, just the base model with 256 SSDs. But it's it's a workhorse. It works really well, and the key is the Magic Keyboard. 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, powerhouse. Has great video editing capabilities. You can get it for about $2,300. Has the new Magic Keyboard as well. Great system. Happy with that one. And then finally, the MacBook Air came out, and it replaced the keyboard. You can now get a quad-core CPU with it. And again, what's going on? So finally, they have this lineup. It looks pretty good. Looks like it's on the up and up. And now they kind of thrown a curveball in there. What are they doing? Let's get into what this means to everyone and what are the advantages and disadvantages, and should you really wait to buy one? All right, so there's going to be three main things that Apple, hopefully can accomplish with going to this ARM chip, and a bunch more, which I'll get into a little bit later down in the video. The three main ones, though, are going to be, number one, battery life. So with battery life, you're basically going to be looking at almost doubling what currently is out there right now. I have the 2020 13-inch MacBook Pro, the 8 gig model, and I'm probably getting like maybe 6 hours of real usage, when my battery, when I do a bunch of different tasks, like, not only browsing the web, but watching videos and stuff. So you're in that range. It's not great. But when you get into the ARM-based chips, you might be able to double that. So you might be looking at maybe 12, 15 hours of real-time battery life, not just, what they say. That's one thing. Second thing is going to be better thermals. So these chips don't even really need cooling fans for the most part. You see a lot in like the iPad Pro and stuff where they don't, they're super thin, they have a lot of power, and they don't need a lot of cooling. For instance, like the MacBook Air right now, if everyone knows that they don't even have the heat pipes connected to the CPU, that's why there's a lot of thermal issues with it. But this should eliminate some of that stuff. And what that ultimately means is a third thing, which will be CPU performance, or the throughput of the CPU or the ARM processor. So with with better cooling comes better, hopefully, processing power. And that'll be the third thing that hopefully comes out of this. All right, so Apple trying to get people to write code for the new ARM CPUs on all their applications and stuff. They're shipping out little Mac Minis that have the ARM architecture and CPUs built into them.
So let's take a look at macOS running on Apple Silicon. So here we are on the desktop that we know and love. And I'm just going to open up About This Mac. And what you see here is that we are running on our Apple development platform. This is a system built to support early development using the same A12Z processor currently shipping in iPad Pro.
And those ARM Mac Minis are kind of a little bit, I guess they're just for development. So it's not going to really give us a good test. But looking at the benchmarks, the single core benchmarks, it says right now, single core is about 833. So it's it's not even as fast as the current MacBooks, but I'll get into why. And then the dual core is like 2580 or somewhere in that range. And I can put up some information here so you guys can see the numbers and stuff. Long story short, those are for developers. Those are shipping out. Those don't look super impressive, but the issue is going to be, again, or not the issue, but the reason for that is because they don't need to be. Also, that's going to be there's an A12 chip in there, and they're spec'd out, I think, with 16 gigs of RAM and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, those are just for developers, and that's the A12 chip. I mean, Apple's already on the A14, or at least this will ship A14 or higher. So that's going to make a huge difference as well, those two generations of chips when the actual units ship out. So we are expecting, this is going to be a faster system, we think, across the board on all their stuff. So should you wait or not? Let's keep going. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, one of the reasons too they don't benchmark as well. Right now, there's something called Rosetta 2, which is basically the transition software or the translation software that's going to basically be taking, older code and translating into the newer code. So it basically has to go through a translation program to actually process this.
macOS Big Sur will include a new version of Rosetta, Rosetta 2. Rosetta 2 automatically translates your existing Mac apps so they work on new Macs with Apple Silicon. And this time, Rosetta is even faster, more powerful, and more compatible. It translates the apps when you install them so they can launch immediately and be instantly responsive. And Rosetta 2 can also translate code on the fly when needed.
When new applications are being created just for ARM, it's going to be even better than it is right now. But right now we have to use that Rosetta 2 type of, it's called an emulation software, so that things can be translated over to that code. Apple's created this to make it really easy for the transition. Developers are going to come back and tell us what they think about it, but in the end, that's what it's all about. All right, should you actually then wait to buy one, or should you buy an Intel-based one right now? Well, again, some of the good news is, everyone's worried about the applications and how they're going to be translated over. How long is it going to take? How long are things going to be supported? So first of all, if you go with the ARM chips when they come out, Apple's already been basically writing these chips for ARM.
Thanks, Johnny. Now, let's talk about the technologies that we've built into macOS Big Sur that will make the transition to Apple Silicon smooth and seamless for both consumers and developers. These new Mac systems will be incredible, and users will want their favorite apps to take full advantage of the capabilities of our custom silicon. And the best way to do that is with native apps.
All the core applications are pretty much already written, like Final Cut Pro and various things that, Pages and stuff. Any of their core applications are going to be written for ARM already when these systems launch. And we'll get into when they're going to launch in a little while here. So that's going to be taken care of. It's going to be the third-party apps and stuff that you have to be kind of more weary about. And this is where this translation code comes in. So again, that's one factor. You're going to get that, and that's going to be a plus because these are going to be written for it. So you're not going to have to be, waiting too long for some of the stuff to be ported over, except some of the really old legacy apps and stuff like that. Another reason you may want to actually wait for the new ARMs is one of the kind of the cool features is since it's very similar to an iPad, these systems are going to be capable of running iOS apps. So straight iOS apps, just like on your phone and stuff.
Now I want to show you one more type of app to run on these new Macs that we haven't even told you about yet, and that is iPhone and iPad apps. Since they've been built to run on the same Apple Silicon that we're using in our new Macs, they will run natively, completely unmodified on the new Macs as well. Let me show you a few. This here is one of my favorite games, Monument Valley 2. It's fun to play here on the new Mac.
Not just macOS, but iOS is going to be able to run on some of these ARMs. It's up to the developer, really. That's what Apple's saying. But more or less, any iOS app could potentially run on the MacBook. So that's one, you're going to get a lot more apps, a bigger app store, stuff like that as well. So that's one thing you want to wait for as well. All right, so the question is why would you buy an Intel Mac right now? There's some good reasons for it, but number one, like I said earlier, the lineup's pretty good. You have a great lineup right now, and there's a lot of good sales going on. I got mine for $10.99. It should be $12.99. I got it for $10.99, so you can get it for a sale. Number two, all this legacy software. Apple, if you can envision this, Apple has a bunch of MacBook Pro users that just spend $30,000, $40,000 on a system. They're going to be very, very upset if Apple does this transition, and a lot of these older programs aren't really working any longer in a few years. So we think, most people out there think that Apple's going to support these native legacy apps, legacy apps more or less, apps from other third parties and stuff. And also just having these systems become, have updates available to them for at least 5 or 6 years. So, in 5 or 6 years, that's a long time, and that's one reason why you want to buy an Intel CPU Mac right now is because, you have a long time and you're not going to notice much of a difference between the two really, for that time frame. I mean, you will, but at the end of the day, all your old stuff should work and you should still be able to download new applications. So just to recap that, the software that you have and also just, the operating system itself on these Intel-based Macs, you're looking at like 2025, 2026 at least while they're supported. All right, so what does that leave? So if you really, if you're looking at the Intel right now, you can get a good price at it. Should you buy one? The question, what I say is there's a couple different things. If you need one right away because one of your old systems broke or you have school coming up and you can't wait maybe 6 months I would say go ahead and purchase it. You're going to have that 5 or 6 years to go ahead and use it before you even have any potential issues with it. And you can always sell it for maybe 70% of your value in a couple of years. It'll still work fine. And they have good resale values. I mean, this might hurt the resale value just a touch, but at the end of the day, you might be able to get 70% for it in a couple of years. Sell it, get the ARM-based one, and move on. So don't let that basically ruin your decision on that, because I think that's a big thing with choosing what you need right now. If you need it, you need it. But now if you can wait about 6 months, we're going to see what the lineup is. Now what they're anticipating is sometime at the end of this year, they're thinking somewhere around the end of this year, the MacBook Air might get this new ARM chip. So if you're looking for a MacBook Air, I guess maybe you want to wait that time. But there are actually reports of the the MacBook Pro models, like the 13-inch. There's going to maybe be a 14-inch and a 16-inch, and they're going to have the micro LEDs maybe as well. But those might not be coming out until like the middle-ish time of 2021. So you're talking at least another year, maybe a year and a half or so. So if you need a computer now, you can't really wait for that. So if you need the Air, maybe. But if you need to wait for, if you want to wait for the ARM, and you don't really need a computer right now, and you can wait 6 or 8 months just to see if they have more solid information, then go ahead and wait. And that's one of my recommendations there as well. Anyways, thanks for watching. So just to sum everything up, Apple's coming out with the ARM chips. Your systems, if you buy an Intel-based system right now, it should work for 5 or 6 years of support at least. So don't worry about that. You can get some good deals on them, and you can sell them in a couple of years. If you want to wait for the ARM chips, you're going to maybe get better thermals, better performance possibly. We'll have to take a look at that. We don't know for 100% sure, but everything gets better eventually, right? So probably better, as far as performance as well. Better cooling and things like that. And maybe even those new micro LED screens and stuff, maybe a little bit better screen on those new systems. But we just don't know where the price is going to go either, or what models are going to come out with first. So waiting can be a big decision. You don't want to wait for a year and a half when you need a computer in a month. So those are the things I would look at. I hope this video helps everyone just to kind of start looking at, should you really upgrade or should you not upgrade? This transition software that's being built right now, that has been built for Apple to get the applications ported over and stuff like that, seems to be working good. Apple's creating these native apps, including they're working with Photoshop. They're also working with, I think, Adobe and companies like that to get these things already natively, programmed for the new ARM architecture. So at the end of the day, I think, like you said, you have to, I don't have a solid answer for anyone because everyone's in a different position. I just bought one. Would I have waited? I have a different situation because I do videos. But should you? It's up to you. You just have to think about it. Talk to you soon. I do videos a couple times a week, and this is just another one in the lineup. So hopefully you can subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.